two. Shit. One, two, two. Shit. One, two, two. Shit. One, two, two, two. Shit. One, two.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The 5x10 speakers will begin in the far west end conference room in about 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, everyone. There it is. Go ahead and find your seats. I'm going to do a quick intro here, and we're going to get into our 5x10s shortly. And I'm just going to go ahead and encourage everyone to come closer. Like, bring the energy here. Like, you don't have to stay forever. If you get up in the middle, nobody's going to mind. But, Alan, thank you. Please, if you would. It'll be nice. We can make this room feel a little more cozy. All right. Thank you for those of you who were willing to. I'm not going to call anyone else out, but you know who you are. Good afternoon, and welcome to the 2025 Industry Forum. We have a great evening ahead of us. I'm Jake LaManna. I'm about to just go into my job role. I'm the president of Portland CSI, and we're going to be starting with the 5x10 presentations, which Alexander Lungershausen has curated for us this year. I'd also like to welcome those CSI members from the greater Northwest region, bear with me, from Alaska, Washington, Idaho, Montana, and Oregon, and those joining us from ASHRAE's Region 11, which is hosting their conference 2 more doors down, which adds chapters from British Columbia, Manitoba, northern and southern Alberta, Regina, thank you. Now I'm going to butcher this one too, Saskatoon. Apparently the chapter's the city, I don't know. I was baffled as well. And Vancouver Island. I got that one right. All right. That's the further north Vancouver for those of you who are from Portland. Anyway, if you have not already, after our 5x10s, please grab your bingo card and visit the industry partners staged throughout the adjacent rooms. You can hear them right now. These sponsors are here to educate design, specification, and construction professionals about the products which our buildings are made from. And if you had attended my presentation earlier today, you'd understand that buildings are not made from lines on a drawing, they're made from products, and we need to know their limitations. So this event and the projects we work on every day would not be possible without their expertise and knowledge, specifically this event, because they sponsored it. So thank you. Let's give them a round of applause and our time and attention for supporting this event. Last but not least, please rejoin us for our keynote presentation at 7 p.m. with Scott Kratz. I think I pronounced that correctly. While some of us design bridges and nearly all of us cross bridges daily, Scott is using bridges to span obstacles potentially greater than mere bodies of water. And with that, hopefully that entices you to come back, Alexander, our Portland CSI past president, past treasurer, and pro tempore president-elect. That means temporarily. So if anybody's interested in a role with the organization, please find the hat and let's chat. Thanks, Alexander.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Jake, for the great introduction. So it's wonderful to see you all here in person. Thank you so much for finding the way to this very poorly signed room. It's awesome to have you all here, and eventually more people will come here. It will all be well. Let's get going with the first part of our program, the 5x10 speakers. This year we have a group with very thought out presentations representing, as always, some of our amazing local talent, as well as speaking to the variety of participants in the building industry that Portland CSI is trying to bring here together tonight. Flores is a graduate student at Portland State University School of Architecture. With a background that bridges both the technical and the creative exploration, Flip brings a unique perspective to design. He integrates research to highlight natural processes in meaningful, real-time ways, a sensibility shaped by his prior engineering experience in the water industry and his roots in Southern California's agricultural community. Flip earned his bachelor degree of science in architecture from Portland State University in 2022. Flip is an avid trading card collector, always on the hunt for the rare and unusual sports or non-sports cards. So here's a chance. If you have a great card with you or know of one, Flip is your man. So please help me welcome our first speaker, Flip.
Hi, everyone. I'd first like to thank PDX, a CSI group. I'd like to thank Alexander. I'd like to thank Portland State University for inviting me to present my thesis topic this year. The thesis name is called Playful Decontamination, Reimagining Urban Spaces Through Water Infrastructure. So today I wanted to share a project that is both deeply practical and I hope a little bit magical. It's called Playful Decontamination, and it's about rethinking how our cities can handle water, not just as a hidden utility, but as something we can engage with, learn from, and even enjoy. The big idea for this project at its heart is asking a simple question. What if the places where we treat and manage water were also the places of play, education, and community? What if cleaning water could also reframe the way we see and use our cities? The idea is to take parts of the water treatment process, like filtering, aeration, and collecting, and bring them into public spaces in ways that people can actually see and interact with. By doing that, we could help improve local water quality, reduce the need for long-distance pumping, which induces energy and produces emissions, greenhouse emissions, and help support local ecosystems. The image on your screen depicts a site in North Portland, Portland downtown, and I'm highlighting 9 different opportunities that are sequential, that do range from screening to aeration, clarification, and then outfall. These are traditional in the municipal sequence of water treatment, from drinking water to water reuse, just to wastewater. So for the process, I started to begin by studying the landscape, looking at how our water systems are connected to other parts of the city, like transit networks, pedestrian paths, and gathering spaces. I paid special attention to where water and people already cross paths, moments that could be reimagined not just as infrastructure, but as experiences. I looked for places where water could be reused or collected, and where small changes could create new moments of refuge or beauty in the city. This meant thinking about universal infrastructure that often runs beneath our feet, such as pipes, drains, and conduits, not as something fixed and hidden, but as a system of potential to surface and adapt. By bringing parts of the system up into the public realm, we can transform overlooked spaces into meaningful ones. Rather than treating infrastructure as background noise, we can use it as a framework for site-specific placemaking, designing spaces that reflect the character and the neighborhoods while also addressing broader ecological needs. These become bridges between communities where shared resources like water become catalysts for connection, creativity, and care. So for the method, and what I have on the screen is one of a series of diagrams as well as 2 additional maps of the district at large. I used both numbers and observations. On the one hand, I measured how much water landscapes actually need and how much water we can realistically collect from rooftops or buildings. So stormwater, not drinking water, not potable water, stormwater to treat our landscapes. On the other hand, I watched how people move through these spaces, how they gather, and where they pause, things that numbers alone can't tell us. From there, ideas that combine technical needs and emotional and sensory experiences. The goal wasn't just functionality. It was also about creating connective urban tissue, spaces that don't just exist on their own, but actively link neighborhoods, foster social interaction, and support ecological systems. These designs help stitch the city together, making public space more than just a background. It becomes the framework for community and resilience. And so on the screen are a couple of additional diagrams, one for screening, sedimentation. Here are a couple for aeration in sequence of the water treatment process. Typically in the municipal setting, you have duty standby systems such that each system can run simultaneously, or each individual system can be turned off for maintenance or can be turned on for overflow and storm conditions. In addition, clarification, A and B, disinfection, and then outfall. And the outfall currently occurs where the Saturday market is near the Burnside Bridge. For the design approach, one of my inspirations came from objects that we interact with every day, things like coats, buttons, and straws. A coat, for instance, protects and adjusts depending on the weather. A button connects, secures, and opens up. A straw moves water from one place to another, similar to what's underneath our feet, pipes and conduits. These simple things inspired architectural ideas, structures that are flexible, useful, and also a little bit playful. They aren't just utilities. They invite curiosity and encourage people to engage with the water instead of ignoring it. In the same way, water treatment can become part of everyday life, not hidden away, but integrated into the spaces we share. When people see how water moves, gets filtered, and nourishes the environment around them, it changes their relationship with it. It becomes personal. And this shift doesn't just benefit us. Trees, plants, and soil stop being background elements or aesthetic add-ons. They become collaborations in a living system, thriving not from leftover attention, but from a designed reciprocity. Water infrastructure can nourish urban forests, create shade, reduce heat, and provide habitat, while those same systems slow, clean, and store water for reuse. It's not just about treating water. It's about reshaping the way we live with it together. And what I have on the screen is a diagram of the screening process. So it's one of the first machines or first systems that any treatment system would encounter, and translating that into an architectural sense in terms of street, edges, boundaries, landscape. So that's what I attempted to do here, attempted to show here in this pictorial. Ultimately, this project is about connection between people and place, between systems and communities. When we bring water treatment closer to where we live, we make those systems visible and valuable. We start to understand the effort it takes to clean and manage water, and that understanding builds care. It also strengthens community. People become more aware, more involved, and more empowered to be stewards of their environment when it lives and breathes with them. Managing water locally reinforces this connection. Instead of sending it away to be treated and forgotten, we reclaim it as part of our everyday landscape. It becomes a shared resource, something we see, touch, and respond to. Local water systems can double as public spaces, educational tools, and habitats. Blurring the line between infrastructure and experience, they invite us to participate and not just consume. The image on the screen is what I'm calling an over-under contactor sidewalk. It's typical in the municipal setting in which you have cells, concrete cells of water containment, and hydraulic pressure moves it from one cell to the next, aerating on each step, collecting, filtering on each step. This image would be an example of wayfinding within the community, such that it encourages travel from one system to the next. It encourages retention, and encourages curiosity to explore the next system. If they don't know where it's at, this example would help guide them. Why it matters. We often think of water as a basic service, something that should just work in the background, but this project challenges that idea. It asks us to see water as a resource that can heal, teach, and inspire. By slowing down how we use water, and by designing systems that respond to the rhythms of our day, we can build spaces that adapt with us, and that honors water's presence rather than hides it away. We can't control water's behavior entirely, but we could design with it, alongside it, and around it. In closing, Playful Decontamination is a call to rethink how we build our cities, not by hiding infrastructure, but by bringing it into the open and making it a part of our shared experience. It challenges us to imagine public spaces where water treatment becomes visible, interactive, and even joyful, when systems that sustain life also spark curiosity, learning, and connection. This is an invitation to design differently, to create urban spaces that are adaptive, resilient, and deeply human. Spaces where water is not just managed, but celebrated. So here's the question we all must ask. What if the places that clean our water also helped us connect with nature, with each other, and with the systems that support us? Let's build cities where infrastructure is culture, where care for the environment becomes every part of everyday life and play. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Flip. That was really interesting work, showing us how playful engagement between communities and the water treatment process can be central and not hidden away in the outskirts that typically don't remain on the border of cities that long. Very valuable work. This is awesome. Our next presentation will come from Dane Cobb, a University of Oregon student. Dane is an emerging architectural designer born in Las Vegas, rooted in Portland with a focus on ecology and infrastructure in the built environment. His work reclaims forgotten spaces, drawing attention to common goals shared amongst communities and natural habitats deeply connected to their environment. Dane is an avid reef keeper, growing an anemone and coral alongside his goby and pistol shrimp when he's not working on his thesis. Please help me welcome Dane, and let's hear about his thesis.
Hello, I'm Dane, and this is my interim thesis presentation led by Professor Will Smith at the University of Oregon, titled Deposits at Ross Island. Ross Island sits just 10 minutes or 1 perfect mile south of downtown Portland. The island was once home to dairy farms, swimming holes, and supplied the very foundations that Portland and Seattle were built on. Following Sherry Ross's 1850 dairy farms, Ross Island became home to the Windemith in 1910, a large 2-story floating platform for dancing and swimming. The floating structure was just a 12-minute ferry ride headed south of Stark Street. And in 1924, the Windemith's water was declared impure due to watershed overflows carrying sewage waste into the Willamette. This kept Portlanders out of the Willamette for the coming century until 2011, when the Big Pipe project was completed. Speculative plans for Ross Island included this well-pumped swimming pit and a neoclassical Olmsted Brother design. Ultimately, the Pamplin family took full ownership of the island, and the U.S. Army Corps cut off water flow southwest of the island, which left the lagoon stagnant as it is today. The water was left stagnant to support the dredge operation that took enormous chunks out of Ross Island's landscape, leaving an unstable, torn riverbed behind. The image to the left is before, and the one to the right is after in 1950. This led to a long list of issues, most notably the toxic cyanobacteria blooms that leach out harmful bacteria into the lagoon from the lagoon both up and downstream of the Willamette. For over a decade, this has kept Portlanders out of the water for weeks at a time, while we're facing rising global temperatures responsible for toxic bacteria outbreaks. This is just one of many issues along the Willamette, a constant presence that will continue to challenge urban settlement indefinitely. Ross Island has many stakeholders like Portland Parks and Rec, Ross Island's Sand and Gravel Company, the DEQ, alongside organizers like the Human Access Project and Bird Alliance of Oregon, who have huge interest in the health of the island as it is today. But as a community, we celebrate, we explore, we clean, exhibit, research, endure, protect, and utilize Ross Island as an asset each day, leaving no excuses for its mistreatment. We must acknowledge failure. We can't afford to keep wasting time and money on reclamation efforts that only deepen and worsen the scars in our landscapes. We must clean this scattered mess up, and the OSU River Engineering team has a plan for that. We're working toward a Ross Island future where blooms are rare, juvenile salmon are more abundant, and Portlanders are not afraid to get in the river. The proposal is to open a 200 to 300 foot opening right at the southwest dike, establishing flow back through the lagoon. The toxic infill, laden with lead, petroleum, mercury, dioxins, and hydrocarbons remain in the lagoon, where it is bioaccumulated into pockets of infill that threatens aquatic life, people, pets, if it's released by high seasonal water flows. And those are a diagram of where the cells are on the island. Looking toward local precedents and strategies performed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, pile-driven dikes increase bank protection, including protection for dredged material placement sites, like these examples along the Columbia River north of Portland. The use of these dikes breaks the water flow, causing the water to eddy with turbidity. This allows trails of sediment to deposit and build natural landforms following the arrangement of dikes. My pile-driven dike arrangement at Ross Island would begin in this manner, protecting pockets 2 and 3 from rushing water currents and collapse, capturing the evident releases of toxic infill previously placed. This arrangement slows the water flow, causing it to eddy and deposit sediments in the riverbed along the lagoon, growing new landforms. To do that, I've elected to use steel helical piles, a low-impact, high-tech method for driving rigid supports to form the dike and establish an adaptable foundation and infrastructure for architecture. The piles rise 50 feet above the water, acting as guides or tracks, if you will, for floating structures up and down, allowing the buildings to float up to 50 feet under extreme flooding conditions. First, rock jetties are placed, protecting existing river embankments, in addition to the helical piles, which are driven into the riverbed before the water flow is reestablished. This lowers the temperature of the stagnant water, getting rid of the blooms, and eventually making way for the rest of the framework to be built out. The network of pile-driven dikes cannot restore the deeply dredged lagoon landscape alone. First, infrastructure and stationary dredge track will operate, conveying sediment along the linear track embedded within the central tube of the piles framework, essentially moving dirt from siphoned dredge material through a tube. Buoyant platforms can be attached to the framework of the helical piles, creating piers which invite people to dock their boats, kayaks, and canoes and enjoy seasonal swimming, picnicking, fishing, or bird watching just offshore of the natural landscapes. A pavilion can set atop of this platform, providing shade, shelter, and lending a sense of enclosure and permanence to the framework of helical piles. The sediment is tracked through this continuously. The pavilion extends its operable limbs as a vital component of enclosure for field research stations operated by the DEQ, Portland Parks and Rec, and the Sand and Gravel Company, ensuring the island's restoration is actively monitored and responsibly managed. The second floor accommodates a range of programs, temporary housing, laboratories, field stations, public kitchens, and auditorium spaces for gatherings which require shelter. Below, the structure supports circulation and storage for paddleboards, kayaks, canoes, field research equipment, but most critically, elements of ecological sanctuary. This is an example of what that field station would look like on the second floor. The sediment track is all fed by a manual dredge operation that relies on siphoning sediment, which these very shiny hoppers separate into sand, silts, and clays. These raw materials are then manually fed and tracked through the central track and dispersed across riparian riverbed zones in need of their once extracted sediments. This method of repair relies on sediments naturally carried by seasonal river currents, promoting a more balanced and chemical-free composition of dirt. This would phase in like so. First, the jetties and pile-driven pylons are placed, followed by the 300-foot canal opening. Then the dikes double as a manual conveyance system, reclaiming the wetland landscapes in the lagoon riverbed. The dikes extend further into the framework and restore wetlands and retain an extensive and healthy riverbed along the jetties through the main channel. Assembled together at an entry gate, these components form a system in which a few hoppers manually convey sediment while serving as a harbor for visitors, positioned near the island's entrance closest to the nearest public dock and boat launch. This is a second-level floor plan showing the enclosure of the field stations to the right of the hoppers at the entry point of Ross Island. This section shows the sediment track running through the core of the helical pile framework. The pavilions and enclosures to the right of the hoppers host areas for recreation, education, and exploration. This is an elevation view of the building, and it shows people with their kayaks down below where they are lounging on the lower levels. And this is a walkthrough of how that framework kind of comes together, and each of those pieces create this sort of armature. It's anchored where boats would dock, and the hoppers would perform that dredge. Below the field stations, the pavilions, below the field station, the pavilion and sediment track remain crucial elements of enclosure for lounging, circulating, and storing equipment. Wherein the pavilions themselves and platforms provide temporary relief and recreation. At its core, this project seeks to heal 130 acres of torn riparian landscape, restoring habitat where the salmon can thrive, ospreys soar freely, and deer can find lasting sanctuary on the island. It's important that people visit to learn and to understand the ecological consequences of urban settlement, what it means for our health and generations that follow. By reclaiming what was damaged, we're not just restoring a landscape, we're rebuilding our relationship with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dane. I love that you have taken on Ross Island. It always looked to me like an industrial wasteland. I think that's what it is right now. And it is such a clear opportunity to have something beautiful and interesting in our city. I'm especially intrigued by making the movement of sediment visible. We talked about that last night, and that it actually like flows, like you can see how the sediment sort of like goes back into the bay. And I think that is really precious and valuable and great graphics. Thank you for that. So our next speaker, Craig Totten, is a structural engineer with KPFF Portland's office. Born and raised in Scotland, he met his wife while studying in Kansas University, where he earned his master's degree before moving to the Northwest. He has been with KPFF in their downtown Portland office for 30 years, and most weekends you will find him at his home in rural Clackamas County, building trails and being an amateur forester with his family. He is here today with his daughter Claire. Please help me give him a hand of applause and welcome him.
Good afternoon. How's my volume? Okay. So I'm a structural engineer, and I've been practicing now for 3 decades plus, and been fortunate enough to work on a wide variety of structures from buildings, but I have to admit I have a special passion for bridges, and that's what I'm going to talk about this evening. If I can figure it out. Okay. So, in my time in Portland, I've had the opportunity to work on a lot of different bridge types, and it's actually kind of interesting that when I asked my marketing manager to put together a slide, a compilation of bridges to start off this presentation, all of the bridges she chose were pedestrian bridges, even though I have probably worked on 3 or 4 times more road bridges than I have pedestrian bridges. When she went in and wanted to show off bridges I worked on, they were all pedestrian bridges. So I'm going to come back to that later. So I'm a bridge engineer. I'm also a bridge owner and builder, and that's my construction crew, one of whom is here tonight. We live in rural Clackamas County and have a stream through our property, and that may actually have been part of why we bought the property, was so I could build bridges there. And I'm a bridge tourist. I love to visit, especially the ancient structures, but just bridges around the world. There's just some marvelous structures out there, and somehow our vacation is always land near a bridge. That's not a coincidence, Claire. And yeah, we've gone to see some great structures around the world. But I want to talk to this evening about bridges, and I guess starting off, what really ignited my passion. This is what's called the Firth of Forth Rail Bridge. It's quite a famous structure. It's dates from the 1800s and is it's kind of an iconic bridge in Scotland. Everybody knows about it. Everybody kind of celebrates it. It lights up at night time. My grandfather on my mother's side actually spent his entire career as a signalman on this bridge. And my father, as a painting contractor, painted portions of this bridge as well. So I've got a special connection to it. But what I wanted to highlight was what really got me interested in structural engineering and bridge engineering is this photograph of a display that was put together when the original bridge engineer was selling the idea of how this bridge, and some context is this bridge was built after a real disaster in Scotland where the Firth of Tay Bridge collapsed in a windstorm, killing a lot of people with a train on it. So when this bridge was built, that was fresh in their memories, and they were really worried that that was going to happen again. So the bridge engineer, and I'm not remembering his name right now, wanted to demonstrate the robustness of this structure, and he had this photograph. And for me, I looked at it and was like, oh, I'd always seen this bridge and thought, wow, that's a really great looking structure, but I hadn't actually thought, well, how does it stand up? And I just thought this was a great representation of how the forces pass through the cords on the trusses, how the counterweights support the center span, and it actually kind of got me interested in structural engineering. Also in Scotland, we have just lots of bridges built over the years. You might recognize on the right-hand side the Glenfinnan Bridge, the Harry Potter Bridge, if you've seen those movies. Maybe a little less obvious is the Upper Arch Bridge. That's the Stirling Bridge. If you've seen the movie Braveheart, where the first battle where he actually wins against the English, it was fought over this bridge. Of course, it was drama. There was some poetic license with the story in Braveheart, but this is where it happened. And then just a bridge that I particularly like in Glasgow, where I grew up. This is the Albert Bridge, which was one of the first uses of wrought iron in Britain, a very graceful wrought iron arch. So bridges, where did they begin? Well, they've been around as long as there's been something to cross, rivers, canyons, whatever, there's been bridges. And the most rudimentary type of bridge is a log bridge. We've probably walked across them on trails. You've seen them. They've been around for who knows how long. But the first, if you actually Google what's the oldest bridge in the world, this one pops up. In Greece, over 3,000 years ago. Sort of kind of an arch, right? But the basic concept is the rocks are spanning over an opening and providing an area, a place for the water to pass through under whatever the passageway was, or over the top that is being used. Of course, there's no water in this right now, but I'm guessing that in rainstorms that changes. But that basic arch concept, together with log bridges and the use of timber spanning as beams, that was around, well, from history, as far back as we can remember. That 3,000-year-old bridge in Greece The Romans, of course, took it to another level in terms of integrating architecture with the bridge design. Again, very graceful arches of various aspect ratios. But we were really, for millennia, we were in this approach to bridges of arches and timber beams. That all changed in 1781. The Severn Bridge, also known as the Iron Bridge, was built. There was some earlier iron bridges, but much smaller. The first major bridge that wasn't built with those materials was the Severn Iron Bridge in Shropshire. And what that did was still kind of an arch shape, but it took away the needs, or the idea that you had to have compression in stone to create, you could actually do it in a much more delicate way. And again, the bridge architecture is really very elegant. So from that, of course, trusses was another very efficient way of resisting loads. Pratt and Howe patented trusses in the early 1800s, and rail bridges and roads bridges were built around the country and around the world using that with wrought iron and then later steel later in the 1800s. And then, of course, cables came around, and some really iconic bridges have developed over the years. So you've gone from this heavy stone arch, the steel arches, the lightweight cables, and I mean, it's impossible to describe all the different types of bridges that exist, but there's everything in between, right? There's combinations of trusses and cables, there's drawbridges, catenary bridges, floating bridges, so there's a wide variety out there, but all developed from those at that 1781 Severn Bridge, where we stepped away from just using compression and timber to span over obstacles. And then in Portland, we like to think of ourselves as a bridge city. We have lots of bridges of a lot of the different types that we've mentioned here. Some of them are, iconic and much loved by the local community. Those of you from out of town, we're very proud of our bridges here. But there is, of course, at least one that we're not so proud of, and I'll let you guess which one that is. It's in the bottom left-hand corner. That's the Markham Bridge, which is definitely not one of the ones that appears on our postcards very often. And over time, from that Severn Bridge time, I mean, what's really developed in terms of the bridge industry and bridge engineering is this conflict between material costs versus labor costs. So back in the 1700s, 1800s, even early 1900s, labor was cheap. So material was expensive. The Iron Age, the Industrial Revolution, we figured out how to make cast iron, wrought iron, structural steel, but it was an expensive material to make when labor was cheap. So this bridge on the left here, this is actually a bridge I did a retrofit on a few years ago. It's in the Bull Run watershed, where Portland's water comes from. So this was built in the 1890s, but you just see how light and delicate it is. Both, from the cables change in diameter depending on where the loads are. The members that are in compression, they're not just a solid wide flange or tube. They're built up with a lattice of diagonals to really minimize the use of material. And then it's another bridge I worked on recently. This is a tri-mount bridge, similar span, but this is the day of the age where labor is where the majority of the cost comes from. So this truss here was prefabricated in a yard in Tigard, and used trucks was brought into place, lifted into place in one day. Similar loading, similar span, but entirely different approach to how to make the span happen. After the Second World War, pre-stressed concrete became a very popular and efficient and durable building material for bridges and structures as well. But in bridge in particular, and in the early 1950s, what's called the Ashto-shaped girder was developed, and it was a very efficient way of combining pre-stressed steel and concrete into a prefabricated girder, which could be then adapted. Since the 50s, these shapes have developed. Every state actually has their own variation of it, which is more and more efficient, really cuts down in terms of the labor cost, and this prefabrication cuts down on the field time. And it's really the go-to material for shorter span bridges, less than 200 feet. Unfortunately, the downside to this, and I'm going to criticize my own profession here, is that engineers have started to rely on these standard shapes. They have certain defined spans. We know what they can do. We know they can be put up quickly. They last a long time. So, looking back to the earlier bridge builders who would come to a problem, an obstacle, and figure out what's the most efficient, elegant way to cross it, we turn directly to these charts and we say, what type of girder do we need to make this span? And there's examples of this all over the place. But this is actually, those of you that are in Portland, I-205, it's kind of the ring road that goes around the east side of Portland. It was built in the 70s. This is Foster Road, which is a portion of eastern Portland. The bridge that was built with for I-205 in the 70s, it's actually quite a graceful structure, post-tensioned. You see the shape of the formwork that was made to be efficient, but also quite graceful. It's probably one that most people don't even notice, but it just blends in with the neighborhood. And this is Google Earth. If you turn the Google Earth view 180 degrees, this is a bridge that was built 30 years later. And what you see here is 3 different types of pre-stressed girders, these development from the AASHTO girders. And what's happened here is, in the same neighborhood, this was plonked down. The spans didn't quite work, so you'll see a large span that steps down to a smaller pre-stress. And I'm not trying to criticize the engineers so much as this, or even, this is a TriMet bridge. The agency is just, we've kind of gotten in this rut of trying to figure out what cookie cutter works in various situations. When it doesn't quite work, we find another piece of cookie cutter that makes up the rest of it. So, you know, an analogy, so this is, again, I'm not trying to criticize ODOT here. This just kind of reflects our industry and my own profession. This is the one of the first parts of every ODOT contract, Oregon Department of Transportation. There's this statement in the contract for design contracts I just signed 2 recently that had this statement in it. Avoid expenditures for aesthetic effect which are disproportionate to the project at whole. I get that and I understand that, but what unfortunately has happened is over the years we've interpreted this as saying, let's not spend any money on how a bridge looks when we don't have to. We're doing a pedestrian bridge, if we're doing an iconic structure, let's make it look great. But otherwise, let's just spend as little money as possible to build that bridge. Then, like an analogy I have for that, I had the fortune or misfortune, as you want to look at, to have a project in Russia a few years ago, and I spent some time there, and I didn't take this photograph because when you're a businessman traveling in Russia, you don't take photographs of things. You're very careful what you photograph. But I did get this off the internet, and it's kind of indicative of what a lot of the housing looks there. It was put up very quickly, as inexpensively as possible. It serves a function. It provides housing for people, but it's and actually it looks a lot worse than it does in this picture now because this is from the Soviet time and it's not been maintained. This type of housing is not being maintained well. In contrast, this is a photograph from the Portland DGC earlier this week, talking about a project that was going through the design commission for approval here in Portland. And it's all about the aesthetics and how this fits into the neighborhood. The reason I'm showing you this is that we would never let something like what's shown on the left be built in Portland. That's just not something we do, right? We want our buildings matter to us. How they fit in the neighborhoods, they matter. But yet we don't look at bridges the same way. Unless we're trying to make a special statement, we just see what fit. We just see what's going to work. What's the minimal cost? So the point I'm making here is that we should look at bridges, all bridges, the same way we do the buildings that fit in our neighborhoods and in our society. They should fit well, they should blend, they should have some structural elegance to them, some architectural design. If engineers are not comfortable with that, they should hire architects. I've hired architects a lot to work on our bridges for that reason. I know what I'm good at, but I also know what I'm not good at. So with that, I'll close on 2 Scottish structures. One, the Forth Rail Bridge, where my father and grandfather worked, and then a much more recent structure, which is close by, rather whimsical, but it's become this iconic structure in the area of Falkirk, which actually was where William Wallace fought his second not-so-good battle against the English. But this is a structure that people actually come to see and the community rallies around. So I've challenged my profession to focus more on providing good architecture in the bridge design.
That was awesome. Thank you for like awaking my aesthetic look on bridges or at bridges. And I will definitely look at them differently, and we're always available to help and make bridges nicer. Definitely, thank you for that. Before we get to our last speaker today, I want to do a quick shout out to our amazing videographer for now 10 years, Frank. Hi, back there. Frank is also, yes. Great work, thank you so much. Frank is also a very creative woodworker who shares his art with great stop motion videos. Totally awesome and fun to check out. So please visit his site, which is called Frank Makes. The 5x10 are typically 5 presentations, but we have an exception this year based on our next speaker. He will share with us part of his work on the bridge project that is intended to replace the main crossing between Oregon and Vancouver. Yes, that big green bridge. Greg Johnson is a proven transportation leader in a career spanning nearly 40 years. He jointly represents the Washington State Department of Transportation and Oregon Department of Transportation as Program Administrator of the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program. He previously served as Senior Vice President at WSP USA, one of the nation's largest engineering firms, as the National Director for Construction Management and Services in Michigan. Prior to working in the private sector, he served as the State Highway Administrator for the Maryland Department of Transportation and as the Deputy Director for the Michigan Department of Transportation. Greg has worked on major infrastructure projects in both Maryland and Michigan, including early involvement on the Gordie Howe International Bridge project to cross the Detroit River between the United States and Canada. He's a licensed professional engineer with a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from the University of Michigan and a Master of Public Administration from Western Michigan University. Greg is a father of 2 adult children, a daughter and a son. Please help me, Greg. Help me welcome Greg.
Well, thank you. So how do I follow a presentation that's talking about the beauty of bridges, and then you look at this green thing that crosses the Columbia River? But the good news is we're going to replace it. And even better news is we are going to use aesthetic choices. We've hired a firm out of England called Knight Architecture, who is helping bring some of the aesthetic values of the community to the new bridge that we're hoping to build. But let me get started real quick and give you some background. So actually, we call this the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program, IBR, and it's more than that. This is actually a 5-mile corridor. You'll see 7 interchanges that basically act as one large interchange in this area because they're so closely spaced. We have an interchange on Hayden Island, which the only way on or off of Hayden Island is the freeway. So we are trying to solve a number of problems in this corridor. So this is our program schedule slide that we show everywhere. We are currently in the environmental phase. We're hoping to emerge out of that early next year and go into construction in 2026. But you can see we have a number of different functions that are ongoing that we have to handle to get this bridge built. This bridge has been under consideration for at minimum 30 years. We are talking about replacing a 108-year-old bridge that carries northbound traffic and a 68-year-old bridge that carries southbound traffic, I-5 over the Columbia River. But that bottom segment is one of the most important things that we're doing, our community engagement. As many of you know, if you live in this area, this is a project that had a tremendous start early in this century, and the team was about ready to break ground on it, and at the last minute it fell through. And one of the things that I heard as I came here to take over this second run at this project was that the community did not support the project. So we've made a great effort to make sure we are reaching out to the community, listening to voices, and making sure their voice is reflected in what we are trying to do. So this is the project that we're looking at. This is going to be 28 different projects that make up the IBR program. So you can see the main river span is the centerpiece of this, and it will be beside the existing I-5 bridges. So we have to maintain traffic in this corridor because there are basically only two ways to cross the Columbia River in the Portland, Vancouver metropolitan area, I-5 and I-205. And currently, I-205 carries 170,000 vehicles per day. We carry over 140,000. So if we shut our bridge down, there's no way that I-205 can handle over 300,000 trips per day. But this is the project, and you can see we have some very complex interchanges. Marine Drive to the far left, the SR-14 on the Washington side. These are mega projects within themselves, but this will be a part of the overall program that we are seeking to get constructed. So how do you pay for a program like this? And I appreciated the call for not just looking at what the dollars are when you are building something that's going to last for 100+ years going into the future. But we also do have to be aware of the funding that we have and how much things cost. So right now, we have done an estimate, and that was done 3 years ago, that put the cost of this reconstructing this corridor between $5 and $7.5 billion. And we are in the process of doing a new estimate that we know is going to be much higher. We know that inflation in the construction industry has been just outstripping any of the projections that economists who do construction economy could ever project. So we know that this price is going to go higher. But right now, this is a good news slide. We have approximately $7 billion committed for this program. So what has changed is that toll funding. The state of Washington, who will be doing the tolling on this project, has said, we recognize that inflation is eating these projects alive. We're going to increase that 1.2 potential funding through tolling up to 2.5 billion. We got $1 billion each from each state, and we have right now 2.1 from our federal government. We're also looking at another $1 billion to help us build light rail across the river. So this is, the previous project did not get this type of funding, so we have secured funding that will get this project underway and will get the big bridge built along with the connecting interchanges. So this project will have numerous benefits, but one of the things that we think is important is that you will see construction activities for probably 10 to 15 years. And the employment numbers, we're projecting that there will be 5,500 direct construction jobs for every $1 billion we spend, and 10,000, almost 11,000 indirect jobs. So this will help be a boon to the economy here in Portland and Vancouver, in this entire region. So, but once again, the highlight of what we are doing is involving the community. So I tell folks I have 10 bosses. I have 2 DOTs, 2 cities, 2 metropolitan planning agencies, 2 transit agencies, and I'm missing 2 ports. And they all make up the executive steering group helping to get this program built. So one of the key things they told me when I first came here was the community's voice has to be heard in this. So we created a community advisory group as well as a equity advisory group to help reflect what the community desired to see in a program of this size that will have this long-lasting impact in this area. We also learned lessons from the last go-round. We created a bi-state legislative committee to keep the politicians on each side of the river knowledgeable about where things were going and take their input to incorporate it into the program. Workforce is going to be one of the challenges. If you, as you are members of this industry, you know that we are seeing a gray tsunami of retirements of folks who helped build a lot of the interstate and associated infrastructure. So we are doing outreach into the community to create pipelines for pre-apprenticeship programs, apprenticeship programs to bring the community and give folks who never had an opportunity to work on programs like this to be a part of what we are trying to do. So we are partnering with the building trades and other workforce entities to make sure that we are advertising these opportunities and getting folks who may now be in junior high school and will be able to journey out on a program like this. So once again, this is some of the highlights of what we are doing, and we have a great team, which Fabian, raise your hand, is one of our great folks working on our program. So we also are reaching out to small businesses, local businesses, to be a part of this. These are going to be large contracts, and we know that we're going to get contractors who do work worldwide, but we also know that it's important to have workforce and companies here benefit from this type of construction. So we've been working to make sure that small businesses can see themselves in some of these 28 contract packages that we're talking about. But we have vendor portals, we have all kinds of things that our website is an award-winning website that has to make folks knowledgeable about what's going on. But we are having events. Whenever we get a request to speak, we never say no. We are trying to make sure that any and everybody knows about this. And if they have a business, or if they're just interested in what's going on, if they want to weigh in on some of the aesthetic choices that we're going to be putting forward here this summer, we're going to make sure that folks have that opportunity. So what's happening next? We are still in that environmental process, and we're hoping to wrap that up towards the end of this year with a final supplemental environmental impact statement. It's supplemental because they went through this process before Washington declined to fund their portion of it and the project went away. So this is a supplement to what was done years earlier. Once we do that, we anticipate an amended record of decision, and this is the final step in our federal partners process that says, yes, you can start construction. So we're hoping to see that early next year. So we're hoping to start putting out procurement packages for contractors for the large bridge, because it will probably be a contractor-driven design. We will probably hand them 30%, and then we will let them complete the remainder of the design in a design build type scenario. So once again, this is going to be an undertaking that will last at minimum 10 years. And most of our projections show it actually going out to 15 years worth of construction. And because we're maintaining traffic and because we're building light rail, all of those things take time to get the funding pieces in place and then the physical construction itself. So you can go to our website once again. It's a fabulous website, great information. It has records of all of our meetings that we have ever held. You'll see the good, the bad, and the ugly. Folks will tell us what they think. They've called me names that I won't even repeat, but we are going to get this project done. And one of the key reasons, as many of you know, off the coast of Oregon sits what is called a Cascadia subduction, and it's an earthquake zone, part of the Ring of Fire around the Pacific Ocean. And that fault moves approximately every 300 to 350 years. We are coming on 350 years since that fault has moved significantly. So getting this bridge in a survivable state in the case of a massive earthquake is going to be vastly important for the economic viability of this area when that earthquake hits. So you can follow us. We have a very robust social media presence. We're doing great things. We have office hours. If you want to visit us, we have an office that's not even a mile away from the bridge itself. And you can come and arrange office hours to come sit and talk to us. But it's all a part of involving the community in the work we do. And if the history of the DOTs has not been a proud history of involving communities, and so we are seeking to change that narrative here by making sure we're going to build something that has the support of the community. So this is my last slide. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Greg, for taking the time and sharing this with us. I have heard Greg now 3 times, and it is a testament to his mastery of the subject that every talk he gives has new information. I don't think I've ever heard anything repeated, and it's a fantastic and very, very important project for all of us. I'm sure it works out well, and that we can realize this project comfortably. Thanks to all your hard work. So thank you so much for what you do every day. So wasn't that awesome? Weren't those awesome speakers tonight? Please join us now for some wine and talk and visit with our vendors who make all this possible and makes it also possible for us to come back every year. Most of all, though, enjoy each other's company, sharing concepts, technology, ideas, and materials, or simply just to connect again. Welcome to the Industry Forum 2025, and it's all waiting out there for you. And thank you again to all the speakers for your wonderful presentations. All right. So let's come to the high point of the evening, our keynote speaker. But before that, the event that you really have all been waiting for, which is the raffle. So today is only possible with the talents of the 2025 Industry Forum team. Please hold your applause to the very end and thank them all at once. So let's start with Tony DiVincenzo. He's back there. He's trying to corral people. Good job, Tony, as our chairman. Wait, we have to crumple that up. It has to be protocol. All right. Exactly. So followed by Bud Henson, who is typically in charge, also back there, of the food. He's from Window Tech. Thank you, Bud. It was delicious. We have Ali Lamana, who is with Walsh Construction. She organized the region conference, but she's also part of the Industry Forum committee. So thank you, Ali. Special thanks to Alexandra Brennan, who's sitting up here in front, She's our graphic artist. She, by the way, has an ad in the paper here in the little program. And honestly, I've never seen proposals from her that did not positively surprise us, or surprise me. So thank you for keeping us and our event at the edge. You're doing absolutely great. Then we have Millie White, who works with Dearmore and Associates. She organizes, I don't know if she's here, but she organizes the dinner and other things food related. Then we have Jody Moore from Dearmore, who is sitting right there. And I'm Alexander Lungershausen with Henneberry Eddy Architects. And so thanks to the Hyatt Regency who brought us these delicious items we enjoyed, as well as the space we were in. And thank you for the AV group in the back who quietly kept us all moving very smoothly. Great job. Thank you so much. And so most of all, thank you all for being here. And I'm going to thank everybody. Stop thanking everybody and draw the prizes. Do you want to help me, Jake? So we have balled them all up. Now you can go proud, yes. No, I hold and you. Okay, so he's gonna draw. You have to be present to win, so this can take a while. Unless you're all gamblers, which was my other theory, but.
Oh, look at that.
So this is Cassie Kuwahara. Is Cassie here?
One of our ASHRAE friends. Are we on out in the vendor area? Yeah. Yell, put it in there. One more time.
One more time?
Yeah.
Okay, next.
Oh, all right. Next one. Is that what that means? All right. Cassie going once. Cassie going twice. All right, Cassie. 3 times done. All right.
Okay, next.
Yeah.
Here we have Patrick Hilton, Architectural Heritage Center. Yes.
Yeah, except for that.
So you have the choice, everything but this one here. So there's either the Uni multi-fuel pizza oven, the solo stove, or this barbecue element. Okay,
Pizza.
go have the pizza oven. Enjoy.
Are you good? You don't have to take it right. If you want to take it, you can. But yeah.
Wait, this is yours. Oh. All right, next one.
And you can pick this one. We're just holding on to it in case somebody's getting on a plane and they're the one who wins and they want to take this. That's the rationale. Just okay.
Okay, then we have Daniel Fuller from Dow Architecture. Is he here? All right. Woohoo! So you can't have that, but you can have one of these two. Solo? Okay. Come on, that's it.
You're moving it over there.
Yeah. And now for the
Oh, we can choose whatever they want.
okay, now we have choice between the last two, and sadly this one's empty.
Yeah.
So can I put my name in this?
Does it even have any stamps? Oh,
Yeah, no, eight stamps but no name.
8 stamps but no name.
Dang.
Here's another one.
We have not had that. The next one goes to Alexandra Brennan. Congratulations. Yay! Woohoo! So we have the Powell's gift extravaganza, or so that's yours.
It also has the bridge coaster, which is
Very cool.
you can take this with you actually if you would like.
Yay! Thank you.
Woohoo! Okay, last one. We have the 22-inch griddle, tabletop griddle with hood from Blackstone. How am I doing?
You need to say more.
What?
Say more about it.
No, I can't read it. Okay. All right, last one. We have J.R. Mill from TCF Architecture. All right. Congratulations.
You want to take it?
Oh, you don't have to take it now. Right there.